Alan Aguirre, Incorruptible 2-minute warning. It's Monday, first week of 2021, and we are going to address the spirit of fear this week. The spirit of fear. Way too many of us are functioning from a spirit of fear. We've been inundated for the last 10 months from every aspect with the spirit of fear. We've been hit with it by the media. We've been hit by it by friends and family, government, church, even. And it's as faith-based people, we have no room for fear in our lives. I mean, not even a little bit. So I want to talk about this, about the spirit of fear. I mean, think about what happened to us in March. Just in March alone, the huge percentages of Christians that resorted to pornography, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, even suicide, because they weren't able to go to church for 6 weeks. Israel did the same thing. If you look at the narrative of Israel, when they left Egypt to get to their promised land, the majority of them, pretty much anyone over the age of 20 that was in Egypt, that saw the 10 plagues that God, or the 10 curses that God put on Egypt, the angel of death, the Red Sea parting, anybody that saw any of that was killed in the desert. And the only people that were allowed into the promised land were those that were 20 and below, besides Caleb and Joshua, because they were the only ones that dealt with things properly. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about Numbers 13 and Deuteronomy 1. We're talking about the 12 spies and the spirit of fear, doubt, and unbelief that Israel... Alan Aguirre and your Incorruptible 2-minute warning. This week we're talking about the spirit of fear. Here's why Israel's reaction to the news that the Nephilim, the giants, the offspring of the Watchers from Genesis 6, inhabited and occupied the Promised Land. This is why Israel's reaction was the straw that broke the camel's back. We're talking about, so here's what happens. 80% of the spies come back and they put fear, doubt, and unbelief into the heart of Israel regarding the fact that the not entirely human giants, offspring of the Watchers of Genesis 6, the Nephilim, multiple clans, multiple tribes of Nephilim, occupied the land of Canaan. This was their hotbed. This was their hive. And that they were going to have to actually, in order to possess their prophetic inheritance, the promised land, they were going to have to eradicate this demonic strain of humanity on the earth. Well, the fear that, this was a debilitating fear. I mean, they were so distraught with the news of these giants that they were going to die and their kids were going to become chum for the giants. All that, the fear, the gripping fear. We're gonna find a leader and we're gonna go back to Egypt. It was such the wrong reaction. They didn't respond correctly. They reacted incorrectly to the news of these Nephilim. This is why, and the fact that they wanted to go back, they resisted, they refused. We are not going to enter into this land. This is a 400-plus-year-old prophecy in the making. And the fact that they couldn't rely or trust in God for this matter. Alan Aguirre with your Incorruptible 2-minute warning for Wednesday, January 6, 2021. I'm going to go off script here for a second. I need for you to understand that there is a spirit, not a spirit. Normally we would say there's a spirit of fear. It's more than that. There's an entity of fear over our country. Has been. It pretty much has the whole planet in its grips. But we're going to, as far as the United States of America goes, there's an entity of fear over our country. right now. And it's not manifesting in the way you would think it would manifest. It's manifesting in another deceptive way because, well, he is the father of lies. Don't you know? And here's what should concern us as the church. Again, we're not to be afraid of it, and I'll explain that in a second. Obviously, that's what we're talking about. But here's what we should be concerned about, or at least contemplating in our prayer and fasting. God, hopefully you pray and fast. And that's, these entities don't have any ruling authority unless it's given to them by the King of the universe, God. I hope you understood what I just said. So, August 1st, God told me this, and I shared with this. I went public with it, obviously, and that's, what's coming is ancient, but you don't have to fear what's coming because we do serve the Ancient of Days. All right, back to our 2-minute warning. Okay, Israel is beside themselves because they come to this realization that they haven't figured out yet, and that's, they're going to have to go into physical battle to fight and dispossess the not entirely human giants that occupy their prophetic inheritance, the promised land. Abraham was told this 400 years prior. The problem is this: Israel is not a fighting people. They're not a warring people. They are a shepherding people. And because they're a shepherding people, they live in fear. Very much like Christianity. In fact, exactly like Christianity. And I've been saying this forever. Look at Israel. Look at that narrative. Look at what happens, because that's us. That's what's happening to us. That's what, it's parallel. Paul even says so in 1 Corinthians 10, 1-12. Anyway, so sorry, I got a minute left. They're terrified by this fear. But you know what? Here's the thing. Oh, come on, open up. Here's the thing. Do not fear, only believe. That's what Jesus said. That's what Jesus tells us in Mark. I tell you, my friends, do not fear those who kill the body, and after that have nothing more than that they can do. But I will warn you whom to fear. Fear him who, after he has killed, has authority to cast into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. Jesus is basically saying, you know what? Don't be afraid of those who kill the body, but can't kill the soul. Rather, fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. So if we are, here's the two things we're encouraged to be fearful of. And I'm going to say fearful because it's not afraid. And that's fear God, right? The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. And fear the enemy of your immortal soul, Lucifer. Alan Aguirre with your Incorruptible 2-minute warning for Thursday, January 7th. Yes, that Thursday, January 7th. All right, I need to share something with you that possibly is going to conflict with a lot of your theologies or doctrines or denominational beliefs. Here's the thing. Scripture says that God doesn't do anything on the earth without first telling his prophets. Now, Scripture also states that we, or God's heart, his mind can be changed or swayed by his people if they fast and pray, seek after him with their whole heart and find him. We can do that. We have tons of examples of that, biblical examples in the entire Bible, Old and New. But it also states that we can change his mind, heart, or his intent if we don't fast and pray, and if we instead have fear, doubt, and unbelief. I'm going to give you two examples. The first example comes from the New Testament. When Jesus revealed who he was, the synagogue in Nazareth, when he read out of Isaiah, the Torah portion of Isaiah, and said, "Today this becomes true. I am Messiah." It says that he was unable to do a lot of miracles in Nazareth that day because of the people's unbelief. Their unbelief in him being Messiah made them impotent. He was unable to function. God's 400-year prophetic destiny for Israel was altered multiple times because of their fear, doubt, unbelief, unrepentant heart. They're murmuring, they're grumbling, they're flat out disobedience to his commandments. So, since you probably don't know much about this prophetic stuff, it's beyond your pay grade to say, that's a false prophet. Alan Aguirre, Incorruptible, 2-minute warning for Friday, January 8th. Happy birthday, Davey. Sorry. All my critics you can flame mail me at info@chameleonchurch.com. There you go. So it's Friday. On Friday, the Incorruptible 2-minute warning takes the rants of Monday through Thursday, and I attempt to bring it all together. Cohesive, contextual. We're going to have a little Bible study, and I'm really enjoying this series, whatever you want to call this show, this format, this thing that we're doing called Incorruptible 2-minute warning. If you don't know, on Monday evenings I do a devotional discipleship training program. We've been doing it for like 42 weeks on Monday evening. Tuesday morning I have the Chameleon Church show, which is about everything and anything. And then then I do this. So we've been talking about fear this week. And I forgot to charge my iPad, which I usually use as a teleprompter, so that I'm, this instead of doing that. So maybe it'll work because I didn't charge it overnight. I get busy. We've been talking about fear, and it's I'm having difficulty talking. Well, as I'm planning these, as I'm planning this out and thinking this out, and I asked the Lord, what would you have me say? What would you have me talk about? What are you saying that you want your people to hear? Because you know what? If I was looking for an audience just for my own sake, I would make a record. I have a studio over here that we've updated, ready to go for me to make new music. But see, this isn't right now. This is what he has me doing. We will be doing new music this year. That's what we will be doing that. So, but if I was simply trying to do something for myself, that I would do music. I've been doing that a lot. It's a lot easier. It takes less time. That's not what this is about. I want to know, I'm a minister. Apparently, I've been a minister even since I was in Scaterd Few. I was telling you stuff in my bands about what God was telling me. And it was way ahead of its time, apparently, because people are talking about it now. Here's what's really crazy. As of this week, we're watching this stuff happen. It's happening right before our very eyes. They're not even hiding it anymore. It's just blatant what's going on. So I'm sitting here talking about this whole fear thing this week, and I'm trying to talk about this fear thing this week without, and here's what keeps coming. Here's what keeps weaving into the topic of fear: lies, deceit, untruth keeps coming up. It's like they're bed buddies. Fear and the lack of truth, fear and untruth, fear and deception, fear and lies and fear, untruth, fear, distorted reality, fear, fake news, bad reports, right? They go hand in hand. So as much as this is about fear, we have to also look at what what is going on regarding. So if you ever read Screw Tape Letters, you saw how the demons kind of work with each other. They tag team. Well, the spirit of fear and the spirit of lies or deception or untruth, they're bed buddies. They tag team, and they work together. Hell, it might even be the same spirit, but it's probably not. They're two different spirits, and they tag team together to keep you from walking in truth, from walking in power and authority. Because see, if you're afraid, right? If I'm afraid, if there's marauders across the street and I'm afraid, I'm going to fold, and they're going to be able to come in, and they're going to be able to storm. Come in, right? But if I'm not afraid, and and I feel, and I'm brave and courageous, then I'm going to be able to ward off the attack. See? So fear and deceit, or fear and untruth, are designed to keep you, the believer, in a cowardly sheep state, so that you don't think correctly, you don't respond correctly, but you react because of fear, or right. And then fear has its own bed buddies, standalone. So if you have fear, and then you have deceit or lies, and underneath fear you have doubt and unbelief. They work together. If you're afraid, you doubt, no belief. If you have unbelief, then it's going to bring fear and doubt. See how they work? See how this works? This all works together. So, with that in mind, I'm going to try and bring it all together. 1 Peter, don't fear what is frightening. Don't do that. Jesus says, do not fear, only believe. These are the little things we've touched on this week. Have no fear. I tell you, my friend, do not fear those who kill the body, and after that have nothing more than that they can do. But I will warn you whom to fear. Fear him who, after he has killed, has authority to cast into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. That's Jesus. But notice, after he has killed, has authority to cast into hell. They can't do anything without first getting permission. And we touched on that on Wednesday. When I mentioned Wednesday morning, I went off script for 2 minutes, I think. And I said, there is an entity of fear over this nation. It's actually around the whole world, but over this nation. And yes, the whole world, not the whole world. Sorry. I don't want you to trip on that and not hear everything else I have to say, because what I have to say is actually more important than whether this is this or this is that. So there's an entity of fear, not a spirit of fear, but an entity of fear. And I said that Wednesday morning, and then look at where we are 48 hours later. And then I mentioned that these entities or spirits don't have authority in and of themselves. They're given authority. So either God gives an entity of fear authority to ransack a nation, because there's stuff in the Bible. It's in the Bible. Or you as an individual give the spirit of fear to have authority and power in your life. They just don't have it. You have to give it to them. And it can manifest tomorrow, and you gave it permission to it 2 years ago. See? So with that said, and with that in mind, they have authority only because they're given authority. Because Jesus, right? Calvary, Golgotha, death and resurrection, took that authority of death, right? Takes the authority from the enemy, and he takes back the deed of the earth. That's what we see in Revelation when he opens up the seals. And he gives us the power and authority. You have power and authority in his name. And as his eyes and mouth and hands and feet on earth, you have authority and power over death. You have authority and power, right? Because you can raise the dead. You have power and authority over demonic spirits. You have power and authority over sickness, right? All that stuff. But see, this is how fear, doubt, and unbelief work together. And we talked about this, we touched on this earlier in the week. Jesus is in the synagogue in Nazareth, and he reveals himself. He says that he's Messiah out of Isaiah, the Torah portion for that week. And they freaked out. Well, wait a second. Isn't this Jesus and Mary's son? Well, didn't he grow up right here? He played with our children. What? You must be kidding. He thinks he's a prophet. But prophets don't grow up from little boys, right? How can this be? This is Jesus and Mary's son. He grew up here with us in Nazareth. How could he possibly be telling us that he's Messiah, the Son of God, the promised one? Well, because of that doubt and unbelief, Jesus, it says, was unable to do a lot of miracles that day in that town. Because of the people's unbelief, Jesus' authority and power was made impotent. See, it works together. It's a partnership. if you're not succeeding or having victory in areas of your life, it's probably because you're not partnering with the Holy Spirit. That's how that works. So, I look at the parable of the minas and the talents. The guy that got one because he wasn't, based on predetermined skill sets. The guy that got five got five. The guy that got two. The guy that got one because he didn't have any. He wasn't that guy. And it says that he was afraid of Messiah. He was afraid of the Lord, of the Master. You're a harsh man. I mean, you reap where you don't sow. You gather where you don't lay seed. You're harsh. Well, that's not a very nice thing to say about Jesus. That's because you haven't been taught that, Jesus. But yeah, Jesus is harsh. He's coming back and he's slaughtering kings when he comes back. Blood up to his chest. I don't know why you guys think this guy's a pushover. No. Anyway, the one talent guy was afraid, and so he hid or buried what he was given to steward. And, that didn't turn out very well for the guy. Well, here's the thing. The majority of us are led by these one talent guys. The majority of church pastors, church leaders, youth leaders, the guys that are behind pulpits, the United States, the Western church is pretty much ran, because they're the majority. They're not the minority. They're the majority, are now running the show. The lunatics have taken over the asylum. That's another song, another band. Sorry. It's Music Friday. Anyway, they've taken over, and they're 1 minute people, and they hide and bury, and they don't, here's why I say that, because more than 80% of Christianity doesn't believe in speaking in tongues, healing the sick, casting out demons, raising the dead. That's what Jesus said. And there's a lot of fear based on that, and a whole lot of lies and deceit. So, have no fear, Jesus says. Only believe. Right. So Jesus says, do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. So the church throughout all Judea and Galilee and Samaria had peace and was being built up, and walking in the fear of the Lord and in the comfort of the Holy Spirit, it multiplied. See, that's a big issue. Why and how has Christianity gotten to the point that it's gotten, that it's actually believing the secular lies of the devil right now? A little bit more than half of the country right now is believing a lie about what's transpired in the last 4 years, what transpired 2 months ago, and what transpired 48 hours ago. More than half the country is believing a setup, staged. It's so obvious. I mean, if you have even the slightest clue, you can just see it and go, well, that doesn't make any sense. And Judge Judy says if it doesn't make sense, it's probably a lie. Well, that's half the country. I'm not trying to get political here. We can do that on Tuesday morning. Oh man, you don't want to miss the Chameleon Church show come Tuesday morning. I'm going to blow the roof off this place. But right, we have been fed a narrative since February, March, to stay indoors, hide, be afraid of your neighbor, be afraid of your family members, be afraid of touching cardboard. Remember that nonsense? Not true. Be afraid of touching cardboard, be afraid of your groceries, be afraid of be afraid. They've been drilling that down us in every possible way. Television, even TV shows now, the scripts are aligned with the narrative. The news. I watched the news for 10 minutes this morning, and twice I heard the false narrative that a violent storming of the Capitol, takeover, coup, Trump, this and that. We have been on a diet of fear. Well, I haven't. A lot of you have. A lot of people have been on a diet of fear since March. What does fear do? Well, that cripples Europe, right? That's how you control people. This is just textbook stuff. See, we've been saying this for decades. Some of us have been saying this stuff for decades, and you all thought we were crazy. And guess what? In the last year or two, you guys have been you've been becoming awakened. See, that's different than being woke. Woke is bad. It's bad English, and it represents those guys. Being awakened is a different thing. That's where the Holy Spirit's actually involved, and your eyes have been opened to some realities and truths you just didn't believe were possible in this nation or in this day and age. We've been warning you of this for at least 30, 40, 50 years. I know I've been involved with warning people about this since the 70s, and you weren't listening. Welcome to the party, pal. Now, and here's a problem. That type of lack of reasoning or processing actually impacts your spirituality, because you approach faith and God and the stuff we're talking about like that. So you need to be awakened in these areas as well. We have been fed a diet of fear for the last 10 months. And it's manifesting in so many ways. I mean, when churches have been shut down out of that fear, why don't you just heal? If somebody gets sick, heal them. You know, that's the thing. When we mentioned that Jesus walked into the leper camps without a mask, and he was touching lepers and healing them. And well, that's Jesus. Well, you're supposed to be like Jesus. See, don't ever say, well, that's Jesus, because that means you're on the wrong team. That means you're on the wrong side of everything. And that means you've never understood the basics of your salvation. You're supposed to be like Jesus in every way, physically and spiritually, psychologically, mentally, emotionally. Be like Jesus. That's the whole purpose behind this. Your buddy Paul, the apostle, says that you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons. Fear, you go back to slavery. You fall back into fear. Slavery and fear, see? Because the enemy wants to keep you locked up. He wants to keep you enslaved in your mind, in your spirit, in your heart, in your actions, in your psyche, your mental state. How does he do that? How does he keep you enslaved? By fear. Who can deliver you from that fear, right? For God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. There's a fear of death. So part of this fear thing that they've been shoving our way has, right? So the enemy takes, right? Do you remember what Jesus was told by Lucifer? Do I have to remind you of that? I think I do. For some reason, these dots are hard for a lot of you to connect. And one of the reasons why it's hard for a lot of you to connect is because you don't understand the game that you are in. Not only do you not understand the game that you're in, or the game that you're being thrusted into play in, or anything about the game and the players involved. But oh man, Lucifer tells Jesus here. It'll be easier for me to just whip it out of the book because I've written about it and we've talked about this. Jesus is told by Lucifer. Oh man. How about if I just read it? It's in this book. This Thing is Spiritual, planetbluemedia.com. Sorry, this is not planned. Immediately following his baptism, we are told that the Holy Spirit descended upon Jesus like a dove and rested on him. In Matthew, I hope I'm in the right place, Matthew 4, Mark 1, and Luke 4, Jesus is then led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the evil one after fasting for 40 days and nights. An unguarded moment, as Lance Wallnau says, and a look behind the curtain takes place. The engagement begins with the questioning of Jesus' identity by the tempter. This is vital information to understand. If you are the Son of God, begins the encounter, for Satan knows exactly who he is. Typical, if doubt regarding your identity, especially and specifically your identity in the Father, can be established and planted within you, then there's the possibility of it taking root. Once doubt is introduced, fear and unbelief follow. Satan then goes for the practical reasoning of the man, the practical reasoning that would logically follow a fast of 40 days. Food. But Jesus, knowing that this encounter was spiritual, answered with a quote from the Old Testament, the Torah, the Hebrew instruction, and Torah is instruction and teaching, more commonly known as, by its erroneous mistranslation, the law, to be exact. But he answered, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but this is the part I wanted to talk to you. This is the part that I wanted to bring up. Satan then takes Jesus to the pinnacle of the temple in Jerusalem, where he questions his identity again and then quotes the Torah out of context, mind you. And once again, Jesus counters with a contextual Torah quote. For the third and last time, we see Jesus yet again quoting Torah as his defense with the final challenge. Again, I'm reading out of, this is Matthew 4, 8 through 10. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their glory. And Lucifer, Satan, the enemy of your immortal soul and life, physical life on earth, said to Jesus, he's showing him all the kingdoms of the world, and he says, all these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me. They were his to give. See, Jesus isn't coming back to take over the governments of man until the second coming. They belong, they're Lucifer's. So if the world systems, the WHO, the UN, if the world governments belong to Lucifer, right? And he's the man behind the curtain, he's the puppeteer, he's the puppet master, why would you believe that anything that is happening is based on truth or reality? See, you have to, the only way that works is when God steps in and intervenes, like he did 4 years ago, and it was prophesied. See, God says, the Bible says that God doesn't do anything on earth without first telling his servants, the prophets. 8 to 12 years before this administration, the prophets were told that this administration was going to exist, and it did, against every possible odd. I don't want to get political. We'll do that on Tuesday. What I'm trying to explain to you is that everything that happens in the world, all this world stuff, Lucifer is the prince of this world. He's the god of this planet. So you have to really have discernment to be able to discern what's up, what's down, what's left, what's right, what's truth and what's not truth. And a lot of the church has thrown their brain out with the with the water, with the basket. I mean, whatever the what's the word? The colloquialism is, right? They've chucked their brain out the window. They're not looking at this in spiritual eyes. It's all practical reasoning. So why? Well, because of fear, doubt, and unbelief, right? And the deception. So let's go back to Israel in the desert. So is it true that the land of Canaan, the promised land that Abraham walked 400 years prior to Israel being in the desert with Moses after leaving Egypt, is it true that the land of Canaan was riddled and occupied and actually the hive on earth for this demonic strain of humanity known as the Nephilim, the giants? Yes, that's a true statement. So doesn't it reason, Alan, that when 80% of the spies came back and said, we've seen the Nephilim are there, that it would only scare people? Well, yeah, if you're a practical reasoning human that is ignoring the fact that you're in the desert with Moses, who's talking to God, if you ignore the fact that God has actually revealed himself to you as a people for how long now? 10 times in Egypt. Then you've got the parting of the sea, and the whole Egyptian army is drowned. The fact that we're eating magic bread every morning from nowhere. The fact that water's coming out of rocks because Moses said so, and he hit. Yeah, if none of that was going on, then yes, I do expect you to be a human about the news. But see, that's why these people were then cursed. That's why they cursed themselves, because they had seen God's provision. He's in their midst every night as a pillar of fire to keep them warm and to protect them. And he's in their midst every day as a cloud, as a cloud to protect them from the heat and the sun. I mean, the things that God did for Israel those 40 years to constantly prove himself and his position and his love for them, and that his desire was to make them a nation of kings and priests. He would be their God and they would be his people. He does this over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So when the news that there's giants in the land scares them to the extent and depth that it did, God's like, that's it, I'm done. How much longer am I going to have to deal with this? I'm not going to deal with this anymore. He actually told Moses, that's it. I'm wiping them all out and starting over with you. And Moses is like, no. And we know why it happened, because he says so. God says, how can you possibly not understand? Or how can you not process, or where's the disconnect in your mind and in your heart and in your spirit, in your insides, that I've not brought you out here to kill you? Because that's what they said. We're going to die. And our little babies are going to die. These giants are going to devour us. As if God was never even in the picture. As if God wasn't literally standing right there going, I can hear you. Well, a lot of us are doing the same thing right now. A lot of us are functioning in fear right now. Fear about our tomorrow, fear about our government, fear about the next administration and what that means, fear about the fact that we've got liberal socialism. It's not even knocking on our door. We're afraid of the New Testament end time scenario as Christians. Oh no, tribulation. That's why we came up with the rapture nonsense. Oh, we've got to get taken out of here before it gets bad. That's not going to happen. That's what, we fear the Antichrist. We fear the false prophet. We fear everything that Revelation says is going to happen to us. We fear, you probably don't even know this, but did you know that the watchers, the 200 watchers from Genesis 6, the fathers of the Nephilim that were put into the bottomless pit are going to be released? Revelation 19, I think it is. Right? We fear the end time scenario that brings Jesus back. You can't have an Elijah without an Ahab and a Jezebel. It looks like an Ahab and a Jezebel are about to take over the White House, and we need a lot of Elijahs. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you don't understand what I just said, you really need to get saved. You really need to figure some basics out. I mean, what have you been doing? You read your Bible, understand your Bible, fast and pray. Work out your own salvation with the fear of God. That's what that means, fear and trembling, right? Because it says that the day of the Lord, man, to fall into the hands of the living God is a horrible, horrible, dreadful thing. And there's darkness involved. That's what it says. You probably don't know that because your pastor didn't tell you that and you're not reading it for yourself. Come on. I'm not angry. You just need to snap out of it. You just need to get with the program. You need to start adulting. Take care of your business. Yes, there's giants in our territory right now, biggins. And they're all led by the father of lies, by Lucifer himself and his minions, the powers of the air. principalities of cosmic principalities of darkness. Ephesians 6. How the hell are you going to take on cosmic powers of darkness like you're supposed to, as like Ephesians 6 says, when you're not understanding what we're talking about, or when you can't even see what happened 48 hours ago is a lie. If you can't see what's going on today, there's no way in hell you have the tools, the brain, or the Spirit of God in you to discern what's coming tomorrow. And that's why I do what I do. That's why we're here. That's why I sang what I sang in all my bands, and that's why I do what I do now. Because this is real, man. This is real stuff. And it's more sci-fi than anything you've ever seen or heard or understand. And that's scary. Shouldn't make, right? What's coming is ancient. We're talking pre-Egyptian culture, ancient. And it's absolutely, completely demonic. With the power to wipe this place out. Men, women, children, governments, nations, you name it. But you don't have to be afraid of that. Because God didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power. But if your life consists of an appearance of godliness that's been denying this power, well then yeah, you should be, how do you say, shiting bricks, politically correct. How do you say that? Then yeah, you should be afraid, really afraid. I mean, don't fear those that kill the body, but those that can kill the soul. That's what's coming. But how do you not be afraid of those horrible demonic things that are coming to kill your soul? Well, walk in the comfort of the Holy Spirit. Gee, speaking in tongues would go a long way right about now. Don't you know? I love that. I came up with that the other day. Don't you know? Dude, you've got to break from that spirit of slavery, that fear puts you in. Right? For you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear. You have received the spirit of adoption. Oh, see, big key here. Spirit of adoption as what? Sons, incorruptible, the inheritance of sonship. That's what this is about. You have received the spirit of adoption as sons. Because he's our Father and he's a good Father. And he won't give you rock when you ask for fish. He won't give you a snake when you ask for fish, and he won't give you a rock when you ask for bread. That's not what he does. And he gives you plenty of heads up regarding what he's doing. Regarding where if he's going to turn left, he gives you a heads up. If he's turning right, he gives you a heads up. If he wants you to hold, stay on target, he gives you that heads up through his prophets. But if you don't believe in the spirit of prophecy, you don't believe in the prophets. And you don't believe that what's happened in the last 4 years is God. And then you go over to the dark side. I've seen it with my own eyes the last 4 years. Speaking of Jesus' death, the writer of Hebrews says this: through death, Jesus destroyed the one who has the power of death, the devil, and by doing so delivered all those who through the fear of death were subject to lifelong slavery. It's all about Jesus. It's all about Jesus. And here's why no, I'm not going to go there. It's all about Jesus. It's all about Jesus. And if you don't have the revelation of the person of Jesus Christ in your life, then yes, I understand why you're hiding in your house. I understand why the masks make sense. I understand why you think why you would be afraid of getting a 90 to 95, 98% survival rate, hard flu. If you don't have a revelation of the person of Jesus Christ, I understand why The politics would make you scared. I understand why news of enemies in Mexico and Canada and in our borders. I understand why that would make you afraid. I understand why. I understand. If you don't have the person of Jesus Christ, if I didn't have a revelation of the person of Jesus Christ in my life, I'd be scared too. Of course you'd be afraid. See, Israel was afraid about the news of giants because they didn't have a relationship with God. God was standing right there. God was feeding them on the daily. God was all of that. He was there. And they didn't trust him. And how do we know that? Because look, just read what it says. Caleb and Joshua, the 20%ers said, "No, don't be afraid." God has removed his blessing from them because he did. And he told Abraham that 400 years prior. He was going to remove their blessing and he was going to use Israel to eradicate them. And so Joshua and Caleb were like, "No, we've got this. Don't heed the bad report. Don't be afraid of the giants in your territory. They will be your bread." That's what it says. They will become your provision. You don't have to be afraid of what's going on. You don't have to be afraid of tomorrow. But the prerequisite is you align yourself with the prophetic Spirit of God and what he's saying. Don't veer to the left or to the right. It's a Joshua principle. Joshua chapter 1. Don't be afraid. Be strong and courageous. In what? The Torah of Moses in your mouth. Meditate on it day and night. Do it. Don't come up with theologies and doctrines that say it's been eradicated by Jesus. That's a lie from the devil. That's demonic. That's a doctrine of demons. Christianity doesn't work because it's riddled with doctrines of demons. And that's why you're afraid. And that's why you don't know this stuff. And that's why the pandemic scares you. That's why politics scares you. Well, yeah, you should be afraid if you don't align yourself, if you don't allow the Holy Spirit to come into your mind and save you and deliver you from slavery and the fear of death and fear, doubt, and unbelief. I'm going to read that last one again. Hebrews 2, verses 14 and 15 says, "Through death, Jesus destroyed the one who has the power of death, the devil, and by doing so delivered all those who through fear of death were subject to lifelong slavery." Hebrews 13:6 is quoting Psalm 56, verse 4 and 11. "In God I trust. I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me?" There's no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, for fear has to do with punishment. And whoever fears has not been perfected in love, or God or Jesus, right? We love because he first loved us. 1 John 4, 18, 19. How long have we been going? 38 minutes? I think we can wrap it up. Check this out. I'll wrap it up with this. Jesus said in John 16:33, "I've said these things," right? Jesus said what he said because he heard the Father say it. Jesus only did what he saw the Father do. Jesus said and did these things so that you will have peace in him, so that you will have peace in me, he said. The shalom peace. Peace, the shalom peace of God. That transcends your understanding. Jesus said these things and did these things so that you would have peace in him. Because in the world you will have distress. Don't be afraid. Be of good cheer, it says. The various translations, don't be afraid. Instead, be of good cheer. Be encouraged. Be courageous. Because Jesus has conquered the world.